Yun. Gising pa? Yeah? Alright, sige. Sino hindi marunong mag-Tagalog? Maintindihan rin nila, no? I may code switch for a bit for those who can't speak Filipino, no, but we'll do some translations, right? Just pick the language. I'm Glenn. I am the illegitimate child of Jonathan and Sel Mantua. Since mommy and daddy are busy, so they sent me over to give you a talk. No, but this talk isn't that technical. This one is a bit more practical, right? So I won't really do much of demos unless you ask me to call on Sam to provide us a singing demo or dance demo. We can do that. Or anybody else who wants to show or give a performance, that's also good. But today, I'll help you out. For those who here is in corporate and in the information security or in the IT team? Anybody? Raise of hands. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, around 7 or so. Let's say 10. Okay. So you got quite a few guys over at corporate who here are pen testers who are being hired by the corporates to do their pen testing. Is one over there? 2? Okay, everybody else is in sales? Marketing? Accounting? Okay, let's just assume 50-50, right? So you guys are in corporate, some of you are in pen testing. What I want to do for you today is to help you talk to your treasurer, to your finance officer, to the people who will tell you to buy or not to buy the tools that you need to do for your work, right? Whether it's in private or whether you need it as a new tool for your SOC or for your pen test team. Is that something that may be helpful for everyone here? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. Few polite nods. Thank you. Then this is a dog. I tried my best to make this presentation a bit more of a dog show. So, for those who don't know, in Filipino, dog show means to make it interesting, right? So, a few quick things I want to ask. And I hope, people would also raise their hands or just nod politely if your hands are tired. Survey question number 1. Have you ever related to Bernie Sanders before, specifically like this, when you're requesting for a new tool or a new tech? You did? Everybody, all of your budget requests have been approved without issue? Talaga? Oh, ang swerte pala nito. Di nyo ako kailangan. Okay, let's assume some of you are just polite and not saying that you don't have any issues. Let's say that you guys are in a budget meeting. Have you ever experienced the need to go beast mode in a budget meeting because your budget requests are being denied, rejected, and so on? Meron? Okay, meron dito. Yes, sir. Okay. Anybody else? Pen testers. You wanted to use this new tool. Unfortunately, it's not open source. It's not what was shown earlier. And, you have to spend hundreds of thousands, and then you have to talk to your finance officer. Have that happened to you? None? No, it always approved. Wow, okay. So, for those who are unfortunate, I hope that we can achieve this for you. Right? That feeling. Diba? That feeling when bubulungan ka, we're going to increase your budget. Diba? Ang saya? Okay, sige. For that to happen, let me talk you through three things, right? So I was told by my friends over at the Pentest and the SOC team that they don't know the difference between CAPEX and OPEX. Why are finance officers talking about cash flows? What's equity? And all those stuff. I won't bore you to death with all those terms, but I'll tell you why finance officers think that way and how you can use certain human behavioral techniques in order to get what you want from your CFOs, from your finance officers, from your boss who would approve or not approve the tools and the technologies that you're requesting. First of all, we have to understand that there's a disconnect. And for me to be able to establish the disconnect, I went to Google Translate. Now, to pick a few languages there and show you how the disconnect is happening. So I went to Google Translate. You can see here. I checked the CISO language, or InfoSec or tech language. I typed in this. Now, and I want it to be translated to CFO. So I typed in, we detect an increased number of attempts to breach our networks, and we need to invest in surveillance technologies. Why don't we invest in SOC? No, not necessarily our service, but service of our friends as well, and personnel to ensure we can respond in time. So can you guess what came out when I pressed enter? The CFO language? I need to spend money that's not in the budget. Right? And the reason for this is because our unfortunate CFOs are plagued with so many terms like OPEX, cash flows, CAPEX, current ratios, assets equals liabilities plus equity, EBITDA. All right. These are probably foreign to you, right? You don't. Do you know these things? Yeah, no? Yeah, you do? Well, for business owners, very good. But for the rest of you guys, yeah, nah. No? In the same way that they don't know what a VAPT is. Unfortunately, no matter how many times you tell them. And when we say, oh, it's penetration testing, and they're going to reply, what are you going to do? Or it's a sock. What are you socking? Yes. What do you mean by that? Unfortunately, there is a disconnect between the finance team and IT teams and technical teams. Because as far as we're technical with our pen test tools, our security operations, IT terms, servers, jargons, endpoints, what do we mean by endpoints? From them, it is all foreign. It's all a different language, even if it's spoken in English or in Tagalog. And in the same way, what they're trying to tell us is a bit foreign as well. Right? Why exactly are you looking at an acid test ratio over the statement of financial position and the statement of financial outcomes? Right? That's also all foreign for us. So there's that innate difference and disconnect. But beyond that, there's a second reason why there's a disconnect. The perception of IT, InfoSec, and sometimes for our pen testers and SOC personnel, when you're requesting a budget, they only think, the finance officers think of you this way. What did it cost? Everything. You are a cost because you're a cost center. Why buy if you can do open source? Why are you requesting this? Haven't you had enough? You just requested for 2 million last year, or 3M, or 10M, and so on. Right? So you are perceived as a cost center. And we have to understand that if you're management, their options are usually just these two things. Increase revenue or decrease cost. And if you're planning on hiring McKinsey, BCG, this is their conclusions in all of their consulting engagements. Decrease cost, increase revenue. A second layer to this is that increasing revenue is so difficult because you have to deal with external people outside of your team. Try to increase your sales price and see how the market would react. So, to the eyes of the finance officers, it's much easier for them to manage internal things, such as their cost in providing the technology or the tools to you guys. So unfortunately, we're put in a situation where it's so difficult to request things. There's a language gap. How do we deal with that? So first, I want you all to look in the mirror and not tell yourselves that you're a cost center. Tell yourselves that you're a value center. Okay ba? Ano yung sabihin nun? Yes, thank you. Value. Woo! You're a value center, all right? And I'll help you be a value center and communicate like a value center in a few slides. Let's talk about quantification techniques, and let's talk about the most basic of all techniques. And it is quite surprising for me every time I talk to some of my colleagues how they don't really know much about some of the concepts here. I hope For the rest who already are familiar, just more of a refresher, some thoughts about practical tips. But for the rest who just skip accounting classes all throughout their college life, I hope this gives you a few techniques up your sleeve so that you can achieve what you want to achieve when it comes to your tools and technologies. Whenever you want to achieve leadership support, there are three main things that you have to do when you're communicating. One is you need to have a clearly important message. And the good thing about what happened in the past 5 years was that it became so clear that cyber is important. It's no longer an argument, right? You heard of the phrases, it's no longer an if, it's all about when, right? And all those stuff. I won't focus on that. I'll focus on these two things when we talk about quantification techniques. You need to say your budget requests through a common language. Yeah? And that common language is the CBA, or a cost-benefit analysis. Right? Anybody here who's done a cost-benefit analysis before? Yeah? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of 100 or 60 maybe. So I hope all the rest would be able to understand how to do a CBA after this. And you need to fuel a sense of urgency when you're communicating. Okay, CBA, let's start with that. Because my contention is this. CFOs, CISOs, CTOs, CIOs, actually any other business unit would agree if we're actually talking in terms of financial amount, financial value, dollars, pesos, numbers. If we're starting to talk about numbers in currency, right? Numbers in currency, we would have a common language. And that common language is this. Let's start from where you're starting. You have a budget request. You're starting out, you're creating your own SOC. A client wants you to buy Nessus. That's your first client. Nessus is what? 6 digits at least in Philippine pesos, right? And you go to your owner. The owner is pulling their hair and saying, there's open source. Why? And then, and that discussion comes in. This cost is just one factor, and you shouldn't stop there. It's just a starting point, right? If you're internal, you need to show the comparison between the cost and the potential loss if the breach is not prevented. Yeah? Obvious stuff. If you're a pen tester, you need to show the upside. So from a corporate perspective, it's the cost. From the pen test and SOC team, it's the potential revenue, and therefore the cost that we will prevent for our clients. So, but again, don't stop there. This is the most important bit. You have to highlight the green, right? What's the net positive outcome? And in terms of pesos or dollars or whatever your currency is, or bitcoins or Ethereum if you're still using. Anyway, so you need to highlight the green part. Don't just show the cost in the preventive breach or the amount that could be prevented if ever we have the solution. Show that net benefit, that net income, the reduced financial impact. Easier said than done. So I'll give you a couple of things that you can use if you want to quantify the preventable breach. Because the cost, it's very easy for vendors like us. We'll just give you the amount. How about the value that you can potentially save? For this afternoon, I'll only show you 2 types of value. It's a very simple formula. There are much more, especially if you're a CISSP. Under domain 1 or domain 2, you have risk management. There's quantifications down there. It gets a bit technical in a way in risk management. But for this afternoon, I'll just give you the appetizers, so to speak. 2 ways. The first way is the ALE, A-L-E, ALE. All right, annualized loss expectancy. All right, I'm pretty sure pen testers are good mathematicians as well, right? Are any cryptographers here? Okay, we can talk about factorization over there, but here it's so simple. For developing the red line earlier, try to compute for the annualized loss expectancy. In other words, how much would you expect, how much would you expect to lose if you don't control it with a solution? if you don't have a tool, a technology to control a potential breach. The computation is simple. It's SLE, or single loss expectancy, times the annualized rate of occurrence. Okay, there are a few things here that's playing in the background. First of all, you need to have a way to estimate the cost of a breach. What's nice about that is in the Philippines, we already have a form of estimation defined by law. And it's in the Data Privacy Act of 2012. And that's the example here. It goes way up to 4 million. Okay, so for those who are smart and thinking ahead, your budget now is at least 4 million. So let's say, for example, the breach down there in the example is an unauthorized access to systems with personal data. You can compute an annualized loss of expectancy by getting the number from the law, which is... All right, let's go. Okay, mamaya na isa. Whew. Malignant? Hindi. Anyway, annualized loss expectancy. Hindi nyo na-gets na. So, SLE 2 million, that came from the law. It's part of the Data Privacy Act. The arrow, or the annualized rate of occurrence, is your estimation of how often that may happen. And these have many sources. Some of the sources could be historical data, how many incidents have transpired in a year, what is your internal estimates for occurrences, your risk assessment framework, if you have, use those. Because that will help you annualize that particular amount. Why is it important to annualize? Very basic reason. Because your vendors charge you by the year, diba? Lock-in period, 36 months, minimum 3 years. So you need to be able to also annualize the other side of the equation and then match that together, and compare it rather, to come up with a number. And in this case, you have a total of, let's say, 2 potential instances, and that's being conservative, right? You can quote me to say 2 instances in a year. That's really conservative in this context right now. Yeah, sure, go for it, quote me, don't worry. Okay, that said, you will have roughly a 4 million ale. And that 4 million, compare it now to the cost of that technology, that budget request. Okay, if you don't get approved, just call Sam somewhere and he'll respond for me. All right, so that's the first one. Now, estimate of breaches are usually very, sometimes unreliable, because the breach estimates come from usually CrowdStrike, Surfshark. They're the ones that publicly publish their studies, their research, and they're in dollars. No business owner would say that, oh, this particular breach is $50 million. That's the entire revenue of the company. It's not usually realistic. No, it's not Philippine sensitive. So if that is your problem, you can use the second approach. The second approach is the estimated effort value. In cost accounting, it's called ABC, activity-based costing. In this case, look for how much would you charge. Pentest, SOC teams, you already have that rate. If you're a CISO, IS teams, IT teams, how much roughly is your cost to the company? So that's your labor hourly costs. How many hours do you need to remediate? What are additional tools, subscriptions, other solutions you need to put in place to manage the incident and to resolve the incident? And finally, are there penalties? Add them all together, then you have that estimated effort value. An example would be like this. Same unauthorized access. Let's say your labor hourly cost is 6,000 per hour for an incident manager, generally. You guys are earning that much? All right, 6,000. Let's say your remediation hours is 60 hours. So roughly a week and 2 days, or 7 days, to resolve a particular issue. Then for you to implement non-recurrence or IT recurrent, anti-recurrent solutions, then that will cost you roughly 40 hours. That's a total of 100 no, hours. Let's say you need tools, and 1M for incident response and forensics, 1M for access control management mechanisms. That gives us 2M and another 2M for potential penalty. And that gives us a roughly 4.48 or 4.6, actually, the correct number, as the value that you will then compare. Okay, so what we did here is there are two approaches. You've got the external approach, get the breach and the annualized recurrence rate, and internal, estimate. So, and from there, you will have a more meaningful discussion with your CFO. But that does not stop there. Make sure that your CFO understands. Who here has a CFO of 50 years and older? I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying if you have. No, they got their milestones in their career at a point where the internet was not yet as rampant now. So they wouldn't really understand what the heck you're trying to say. So it's very important for us to be able to give them that sense of urgency. And how would you do that? Before that, have you ever experienced this? Your budget before the data breach and your budget after the data breach. Any similar situations out there? Yeah, you did? Diba? It had to take a breach. It had to take you guys to breach them for them. So thank you for your service. But if you are, for example, unable to talk to your CFOs in a way that gives them a sense of urgency, my tips is get them to gradually understand. Bits and pieces, right? Give them that note. Okay, something happened here. Something happened here. But more importantly, make that relatable to them. Say something happened with this company in the same industry as ours who's providing the same product or the same service. So, and then for the SOC and pen tester teams, that's a way for you to actually upsell your SOC and your pen test tools, and then eventually to the client. Okay, so basically that's it, the quantification techniques. As I said, there's much more, but I won't bore you to death with all the rest of the mathematics there. Some other things I learned along the way that makes things much more bearable for InfoSec and IT teams is that there are two other things I want to share with you before I close off. The first is, let's call them ninja moves. Okay, sino dito may asawa? Or who here is familiar of ninja moves? Huh? Nan? Ninja moves in the corporate world is also called water cooler conversations. Oh, di ba? Professional. So, water cooler conversations. Do not request and do not persuade for budget to be approved during the meeting. You'll just surprise them and people will fall off their seats. Di ba? If it's huge, you need to get them to understand it bit and bit. How do you eat an elephant? By breaking it to pieces, then eating it in smaller chunks. Similarly, engage in water cooler conversations outside of formal meetings with your finance, accounting boss. Talk to them, socialize to them. Hey boss, alam mo ba? Something happened in this, na-hack sila. Naku, grabe. NPC, BSP, SEC, ABC, DEF, GEH. Maintindihan nila yan. And establish a relationship ahead of the meetings so that they won't be surprised. So that when the time comes, you're in the meeting or you submit your budget to them, they already know. No? And what's something that you could add to that is to hack into the herd mentality bias of people. Tell them, and you'll see great results from this. Tell them that other companies in the same field, in the same industry are doing the same. Yeah, just see how they react. It makes a different impression if the story is like that. These are the things that the rest are doing, we're laggards. Especially if you're in the same tier. If you're in the same tier, the better the story is. And show comparisons. Oh, tell them, this solution, this much. This solution, this much. Yung solution ko, midway. Diba? Quality, and then financial pa. Diba? Even if hindi totoo. I mean, just get a quote from somebody. And then, oh, itong kinote sa akin. Pero ito yung quote na, sakto lang. All right, so that's pretty much it. Ninja moves use or hijack herd mentality bias that usually gets the people thinking, and most especially if you're working with venture capital type money. So your investors are what? 50, 60 financiers? They don't care about the tech. Honestly speaking, they care about your returns, but they'll give you the money and they won't think about the tech. So, diba? They won't think about that. So tell them this is what the rest are doing. Oh, and then they'll move towards that because those people are usually the ones who buy stock when everybody else are buying stock. Okay, with that said, I hope that you guys would end up like this. Your CFO would say, yeah, it's expensive, but take my money, get it, and good luck, everybody, on your budget request. Sasayaw si Sam, di ba?